Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Swallowed Star Part 196 based on novel. So let's start. The soundless scream from the terrifying fiend rang out in the lightning demon god Bya's head. He only felt like his head had suddenly been viciously stabbed by countless needles. His entire body shuddered, while his unstoppable attack from before was drastically affected. It weakened severely. The two droplets of tears from the angel landed on the lightning demon god Bya's blade silently. From where the tears landed, white light immediately spread across the two blades. It did not stop the attack, nor did it destroy the blades. However, Bya's domain on the blades as well as all of the aura of darkness and negative energy vanished completely when the two droplets landed. In other words, they had vanished in the most crucial moment of the battle. The two mantis blades stabbed into Sima's yarn's armor viciously. However, Sima's yarn had become countless times larger than before, while his armor had thickened as well. The mantis blades were Bya's most powerful attacks, such that even without the support of any power, they were still abnormally sharp. However, they failed to even reach Sima's yarn's chest muscles. If the domain and the other powerful boosts remained, Bya would have the utmost confidence to tear this baldy to shreds no matter how large Sima's yarn had become once the two blades landed. Unfortunately, they were just a pair of sharp blades now. Sima's yarn's weathered face revealed a vicious smile. He had been waiting for this moment for far too long. He had always been suppressed by Bya and he had been enduring it the whole time as well, just so he could deal a fatal attack in the final moment. Hanyu had only helped Sima's yarn for a single instance, but Sima's yarn and Hanyu had already planned it a long time ago, just like how Caio, Wenyu Yuan, and Lin Xin worked together. Sima's yarn's movements were not as dexterous as Bya, nor were they as fast, but they were not much slower either. When Bya's blade stabbed into Sima's yarn's body, Sima's yarn was close to completing what he was doing as well. His attack was crude. He threw the gigantic ball of lightning at his own chest. Indeed, he did not even spare himself. The terrifying metal ball that had become several dozen times larger collided into his chest like a cannon hitting a mosquito. Sima's yarn's domain was called the gigantic ball of lightning. It was similar to Long Yating's domain weapon. Although it could not turn him into a weapon like how Long Yating could turn into a sword, its powers were basically the same. In that moment, the gigantic ball of lightning collided against his body. It seemed like Sima's yarn was completely disregarding his personal safety, but from a perspective of his domain, his body was also a part of the gigantic ball of lightning. The collision was just uniting the two, so could it cause much damage at all? A terrifying, sharp scream wreaked havoc in Bya's head. The intense pain caused Bya to stiffen up uncontrollably. The moment he had landed his attack on Sima's yarn was also the moment he had become stuck to Sima's yarn and when the sharp scream affected him. The opportunity was completely within Sima's yarn's grasp. His grasp could be described as flawless, as a matter of fact. He had weakened Bya completely, while giving himself enough time. The gigantic ball of lightning collided against Sima's yarn's chest as he stood 100 meters tall. In that moment, his entire body lit up with golden light, while his chest was purple. If a praying mantis was crushed by a mountain, what would happen? As one of the demon gods with the greatest attacks, Bya's defense was not particularly strong. Under ordinary circumstances, even if he encountered danger, he could use his demon god pillar to teleport away as it was nearby. However, the bright glimmer of hope had clashed with demon gods far too many times, so they were extremely experienced. Since Sima's yarn and Hanyu had set up a trap to kill, they would not give him any opportunity to escape. The terrifying scream lasted for a total of 3 seconds in Bya's head, but those 3 seconds completely overwhelmed Bya. Perhaps this period would have been shorter for demon gods skilled in magic with powerful mental force, but Bya was far too focused on one thing, such that his other aspects were not particularly strong. As a result, he was completely helpless after falling into the trap. However, no matter how weak Bya's defenses were, he was still a demon god who ranked within the top 10 and he was protected by his demon god transformation. Although Sima's yarn's attack had forcefully landed on him with the might of his domain weapon, it failed to kill off Bya. Though, Bya was trembling with fear. Under the heavy blow, Bio only felt like his organs had been crushed by a searing piece of iron. What made his despair was that his mantis blades had both shattered under the terrifying force. Without his mantis blades, he was like a toothless tiger. In that moment, all Bio wanted was to escape, but only 2 seconds had passed since terrifying scream began. Before the scream ended, he was unable to connect with his demon god pillar. As a matter of fact, he could not even use the demonic collapse technique. Everyone who understood Simon's yarn would have known that his attack had only just begun after the gigantic ball of lightning had landed. Simon's yarn did not hold back at all. He understood exactly what kind of opponent he was facing. If he let Bio catch his breath, he might have even been able to regrow his blades. As a result, he erupted like what Lin Xin did before, without holding back anything at all. Afterwards, a terrifying rumble erupted from Simon's yarn's chest like thunder. Smash, crush and triple blast, combined with the godly purple lightning and the godly purple lightning cannon. The lightning demon god became the first opponent who had to endure the full force attack of Simon's yarn's domain weapon ever since he had gained a domain. Even the abomination king from before had not been treated like this. Simon's yarn's body twitched from the electricity and black smoke emerged from his chest. When he removed the gigantic ball of lightning, even Bio's demon god crown was destroyed, let alone his body. Could the power of domain weapons be blocked so easily? In just those few minutes, the bald priest Simon's yarn had surpassed the record that Lin Xin had just set down on the battlefield, increasing the highest rank of the demon god that died on the battlefield to 10th. The fellow sufferers, the snake spear demon god Eligos and the lightning demon god Bio, could now reunite in a different world. Their demon god pillars had completely dimmed now. Simon's yarn had even used less effort than Lin Xin. After all, he did receive the direct assistance of Han Yu. Simon's yarn extended his thumb at Han Yu while also rubbing the image of an angel on his chest. Now, the image of the angel vanished silently. The divine throne of terror and sadness was the strongest divine throne after the divine throne of eternity and creation. It was also the first divine throne that mankind had created. During the age of darkness that had spanned over 6,000 years, the divine throne of terror and sadness had only ever recognized 2 knights. Han Yu was the second. The weapon that the divine throne provided was only a shield, the shield of terror and sadness. In terms of defense, it could be regarded as the best among the 5 subsidiary divine thrones. Currently, Han Yu had easily stopped a Demon King-level Devil Dragon squad, all by himself, yet he was able to assist Simon's yarn while being under simultaneous attacks from a Devil Dragon King, Moon Demon King and a Star Demon King. That only demonstrated just how astonishing the defenses of the Divine Throne of Terror and Sadness were. However, from the performance of the Divine Throne earlier, it was possible to tell that the Divine Throne's abilities were not just restricted to defense. The technique that Han Yu had just used was called the Rhythm of Terror and Sadness. He could use this technique on himself, or on other people as well. It was a powerful auxiliary technique that could also restrict its targets. Han Yu and Simon's yarn had once experimented with it many times. They had experimented the effects of the terrifying scream on the starry sky Holy Knight Yang Haoyu, which demonstrated that even a powerhouse like Yang Haoyu, someone of both physical and magical prowess with tremendous mental force, would still be incapacitated by the scream for 2 seconds at the very least. And the most terrifying part about the technique was that it could not be interrupted or removed. However, it also came with a prerequisite, which was that it had to land on the opponent. The only flaw about the technique was that it could not lock onto the opponent, so it required the enemy to not dodge. Otherwise, Han Yu would not have waited until Simon's yarn was in danger before he took action. Under the combination of these 2 companions, they finally finished off a demon god rank very high. It also brought slight relief to the situation of the humans. However, the battle prowess of the demon gods was still terrifying. In that short moment, another 2 eternal heroes fell, while Lin Xin also used this time to re-enter the battlefield. He directly flew over to Simon's yarn's shoulder. He tossed a few pills to Simon's yarn and then used Simon's yarn's shoulder as an artillery battery. With the eternal dragon's fire as his cannon, he unleashed his might across the entire battlefield, using the great attacks of the sacred sun domain to attack the vital points of the enemy. Siman also used this opportunity to recover from the wounds he had just suffered and the spiritual energy he had consumed. After both sides had erupted with power, balance strangely returned to the situation. The Temple Union had indeed killed many 8th-step demon powerhouses, but the explosion of the magic cannons had taken many lives as well, making the humans lose a lot of their battle prowess. As for the battle between the 9th-step powerhouses, both sides had basically suffered the same casualties. Overall, it was the demons who suffered slightly less. After all, the demon gods had the support of their demon god pillars. With the protection of their demon god pillars and the boost from their demon god transformation and other abilities, it was very difficult to kill demon gods unless they were caught off guard, like what Lin Xin and Siman did earlier. The influence of the deaths of other 9th-step demon powerhouses affected the battlefield in a less significant manner. Coupled with the Moon Demon God and Star Demon God supporting their respective clans, the scales of victory still ended up tipping towards the demons gradually due to their original difference in strength. However, as the differences in strength was not too great and the Star Demon God and Moon Demon God had always been going easy on the battlefield, they were able to achieve a balance. 3,000 meters in the air, the most important battle between Long Haochen and the Demon God Emperor entered another level as well. When Long Haochen opened his eyes again, it was the first time he felt he had the power to truly challenge the Demon God Emperor. Before the Divine Throne of Eternity and Creation had awakened, he actually did not cow that this super-divine tool had such power. The Devil Dragon pillar behind the Demon God Emperor stood like a pillar holding up the sky. Under its influence, the Demon God Emperor's aura rose to an unprecedented level of terror. The huge, black sword slowly descended in the air, stopping before the Demon God Emperor. The light from the inscriptions on the sword were gradually withdrawn into the sword. However, the inscriptions remained dim. The Demon God Emperor's eyes had become completely dark golden in that moment. He raised his right hand and held the hilt of his sword in a reverse grip. He looked at Long Haochen coldly. Ever since my spiritual energy surpassed 500,000, I haven't encountered a single opponent that's enough for me to use my full strength. Very impressive. As the inheritor of my bloodline, you actually do have the strength to challenge me. Actually, it's a kind of joy for a powerhouse like me to encounter an opponent like you. Just let me see just what level you can reach and how much strength you can force out of me. This sword is called the Devil Dragon Sword. It originates from a piece of dragon bone from my body. It possesses its current power from being forged for several hundred years in my body. The sword, the Devil Dragon Pillar and I are one. As he said that, the hilt of the Devil Dragon Sword revolved around in the Demon God Emperor's right hand and the blade now pointed upwards. The Demon God Emperor held it in a standard grip, pointing it to his side. The huge sword that seemed disproportionate to his size immediately lit up with a dark, blue light, while the inscriptions of the sword shone with dark golden light. Long Haochen also raised his right hand and slowly gripped the sword of eternity and creation right before him. In that moment, many wondrous sensations filled his body. It was not powerful, but it made him feel like he could cut through all obstacles and create a miracle. The 9 symbols on the sword of eternity and creation all lit up the moment he gripped the sword, while the lines on Long Haochen's armor of eternity and creation also seemed to come alive. His body gave off a noble spirit. Against the Demon God Emperor that had the Devil Dragon Pillar as his background, the noble spirit actually pushed back the aura of darkness from the Demon God Emperor. Not only did it match it evenly, it even showed signs of gaining the upper hand. The Demon God Emperor's gaze seemed rather stern. Even though there was only a sliver of aura from the Creator God that remained in the Divine Throne of Eternity and Creation, the Creator God was still the greatest God who had created the entire world and the countless realms. In a certain sense, a realm was a part of the Creator God's body, while the principles that bounded the entire world were created by the Creator God as well. Even if Long Haochen's super-divine tool only possessed a sliver of the Creator God's aura, it was still extremely terrifying to any opponent, including a powerhouse like the Demon God Emperor. The battle began in the next moment. Long Haochen charged forwards first. With a flash of white light, he appeared before the Demon God Emperor in the next moment. Because he wielded the Sword of Eternity and Creation in a reverse grip, he directly flicked its sword upwards. If someone was watching the battle, they would have witnessed the magnificent scene that Long Haochen had created. a long streak was left behind in the area that Long Houchen had just flashed past. The streak was composed of countless figures of light. These figures of light depicted the sight of nature growing, and even the illumination from the sun, moon, and stars. The demon god emperor immediately blocked with his sword and parried Long Houchen's attack. The two super-divine tool swords had finally clashed under their strongest state. In the moment the two swords collided, the inscriptions on the devil dragon sword produced a resounding dragon's roar, while all 9 symbols on Long Houchen's sword of eternity and creation shone brilliantly. Long Houchen and the demon god emperor had engaged in close combat once again. However, Long Houchen was no longer the one completely overpowered by the demon god emperor. Clang! With an ear-splitting explosion, Long Houchen and the demon god emperor were both knocked away. They were actually evenly matched in that clash. None of them managed to do anything to their opponent. However, the demon god emperor's devil dragon sword produced a gentle thrum after the clash, which made the demon god emperor's expression change slightly. Although it was just a clash and Long Houchen and the demon god emperor were unable to determine victory through it, the strength separating the two swords was completely brought to light. Long Houchen's cultivation had reached the 9th rank of the 9th step, but he was still not as great as the demon god emperor's 1 million spiritual energy. However, they were evenly matched. This demonstrated the advantage the sword of eternity and creation possess over the devil dragon sword, while the gentle thrumming from the devil dragon sword demonstrated its weakness. With a flip of his hand, the sword of eternity and creation was now wielded in a standard grip. He brought his left hand to the hilt as well as he looked at the demon god emperor calmly. The gemstone on his chest shone with resplendent green light as the sliver of aura from the creator god immediately erupted. Nature's bloom. It was still the nature's bloom from the 3 sword techniques of eternity, but this time, the demon god emperor had become never so stern before. The sky became green as a dense aura of life immediately reached over 500 kilometers away. The dragon-resisting mountain pass that had always been in a cold and terrible environment suddenly gained a hint of warmth, which rapidly strengthened. The sky had suddenly become green. Whether it were the humans or the demons, they all raised their heads instinctively to look. They saw something they would never forget in their lives. A wondrous sight appeared in the sky like a mirage. The projections of countless, green plants appeared in the air. These plants seemed to be growing constantly, covering the entire sky. The wonderful aura of blooming nature even made the demons rather stunned. The greenery that seemed to stretch endlessly could even be seen from the Exorcist mountain pass under the control of the Assassin Temple. The dense aura of life descended from the air, which brought on a delightful sensation that their spiritual energy was increasing for powerhouses of all elements apart from darkness. Without a doubt, this phenomenon strengthened the humans, weakened the demons. Even though it was not powerful, it heavily influenced the morale and might of both sides. The moon demon god Agar's eyes were filled with disbelief. He finally understood why the demon god emperor had used the devil dragon pillar. Long Houchen was even more powerful than they had imagined him to be. Just this phenomenon had demonstrated he had the power to challenge the demon god emperor. The demon god emperor did not just grow stern. When the nature's bloom was used, H took action. He slowly raised the devil dragon sword in his hand and gripped it with both hands as well. At the same time, a strange hum rang out from his body. Dark blue light erupted from his chest, rising up in the form of a huge, dark blue ball of light, fusing into the devil dragon sword. A black hole immediately appeared on the tip of the devil dragon sword. The black hole rapidly expanded, ripping through the green landscape from the nature's bloom in the blink of an eye. Dense pulses of spiritual energy caused unimaginable destruction in the air, while dark blue lightning crackled in the surroundings of the black hole. The devil dragon pillar silently vanished from the air, while the black hole grew at an astonishing speed, as if the black hole could absorb all energies. The lightning in its surroundings became stronger and stronger, as thick bolts of lightning constantly landed on the green landscape destructively. One created while the other destroyed. They matched each other's attacks. However, to the demon god emperor's surprise, Long Houchen did not directly use the nature's bloom as an attack this time. Instead, it only seemed like preparation. When the black hole grew to 1,000 meters across, it was finally contained. The calls of beasts and birds began to appear, as insects and animals began to appear in the green world of nature. The insects and animals evolved at an astonishing rate. Whenever they developed, they would become even more powerful, and gradually, magical beasts began to appear. This wondrous, magnificent sight instead gave the demon god emperor unprecedented pressure. This was clearly the second sword technique of eternity, creation of the living. However, the creation of the living had been used with the nature's bloom. The world of nature had gained life. It gave off an aura that abided with the principles of the world. Agar's gaze softened when he saw this. It also gradually became determined, while his attacks towards Xu Yongxiao became more and more powerless. His gaze remained glued to the sky as he became fascinated by it. He liked this aura of creation. He did not want destruction. He wanted existence. The star demon god Visago had also been stunned by this sight. Although his feelings were not as deep as the moon demon gods, he could sense that his and the moon demon god's plan really might succeed. Long Haochen really might be able to defeat the demon god emperor. Beyond the dragon-resisting mountain pass, the powerhouses of the Temple Union and the demon race gradually separated, and their battles stopped momentarily. They were landed on the ground and the walls of the dragon-resisting mountain pass. All of the powerhouses raised their heads to witness this wondrous phenomenon of the sky. This was a battle between the two most powerful powerhouses of the current age. All of the demon gods immediately realized that their invincible ruler, the current demon god emperor, had finally encountered an opponent. It was very difficult to say who would triumph in the end. The terrifying clash that was about to happen would likely be the determining factor of victory. Faced with the combination of the nature's bloom and creation of the living, the demon god emperor's devil dragon sword changed once more. The devil dragon pillar appeared. However, it directly appeared below the demon god emperor this time. Afterwards, the demon god emperor actually fused into it, merging with the demon god emperor gently. With a resonant dragon's roar, the devil dragon pillar directly entered the huge black hole that spanned 1,000 meters. Its terrifying size rapidly shrank as it entered the black hole. The dragon's roar did not vanish after the devil dragon pillar had vanished into the black hole. Instead, it became stronger and stronger, booming through the air like thunder. Under the terrifying roar, the scene from the nature's bloom and creation of the living in the air began to blur. What happened next shocked all of the human powerhouses. A colossal head slowly emerged from the black hole. It belonged to a dragon and it was completely black. However, it had a pair of huge, blood-red eyes. Even from 3,000 meters away, the powerhouses on the ground could still see the blood-red color flickering in its eyes and sense its destructive aura. A dark blue haze existed around the colossal dragon. Lightning crackled within the haze. The huge head slowly emerged, followed by its colossal body. Its size was so terrifying that everyone, including the demons, gasped. Originally, they thought that the 1,000-meter-long, dark gold dragon that revolved around the devil dragon pillar was terrifying enough. However, now that this black dragon had appeared, they discovered that the dark golden dragon was insignificant in comparison to the black dragon. The black dragon was over 3,000 meters long. With its appearance, the green surroundings and the many living creatures were heavily affected. In particular, the magical beasts that had evolved in the projections of light dispersed rapidly like they had met their natural enemy. This was the demon god emperor original form. As the head of the Devil Dragon clan and the Devil Dragon Emperor, this was the first time the demon god emperor had revealed his original form in a battle against humans. Moreover, this was his original form after fusing with the Devil Dragon pillar. The terrifying aura constantly increased. Under the dark blue haze around the demon god emperor, it used its blood-red eyes to look at the projection ahead. It did not launch an attack, instead only hovering in the air. However, his aura severely disturbed the structure of the green scene. Without a doubt, Long Haochen had lost the upper hand once again after the demon god emperor had revealed his original form. The star demon god Visago arrived beside the moon demon god Agaz and said softly, "Fengxiu must be using his powers as a god." Agaz nodded slowly, "That's a power that we can't contend against. I just wonder whether Long Haochen has a way to deal with it. If even Fengxiu, who's using his powers as a god, can't do anything to Long Haochen, then the humans will definitely be defeatable and we can finally have a choice in this matter. Vasago did not ravish in joy because of what Agaz had said. Instead, his eyes became filled with worry. Second brother, for some reason, I'm feeling a terrible omen. Agaz looked at Vasago in surprise. If someone else had said that, he would not have cared, but this came from the star demon god Vasago, the great demon prophet. Even the demon god emperor would take his omens seriously. Vasago said sternly, do you still remember how I said in the past that our only chance to kill Long Houchen was in the star demon pagoda? We failed that time, so it's no longer possible for us to succeed. That's why I agreed to your plan afterwards. Since we can't kill Long Houchen, it means that Long Houchen might be crucial to the extinction of demons. In other words, he should be able to defeat the demon god emperor Fengxiu. Agaz nodded, of course I remember. But isn't that what I want? Vasago said, however, upon seeing Long Houchen today, he gives off an unprecedented feeling of danger, as if he has some power that can threaten our existence. Agaz said sternly, I still don't understand what you're trying to say. A sliver of fear appeared in Vasago's eyes. Second brother, do you think that the current Long Houchen can defeat Fengxiu? Agaz responded without further thought, it's very difficult for him to do so. Even just maintaining a balance against the demon god emperor will be very difficult. The strength that Long Houchen has currently displayed is rather great, but I didn't sense him go through a breakthrough like Fengxiu. He hasn't broken through 1,000,000 spiritual energy and reached that whole new level. As a result, it'll be very difficult for him to defeat Fengxiu. Even for a draw, it's not very likely. That's why I was wondering whether we should interfere and assist him. Vasago shook his head strongly and firmly, no, we can never do that. According to my great prophecy technique, Fengxiu can't kill Long Houchen. However, Fengxiu has already designated Long Houchen as a threat in today's battle. If he defeats Long Houchen, how is it possible for him to spare him? Long Houchen won't die in this battle, which means he still has something else that he can use against Fengxiu. Aside from the divine throne of eternity and creation, what other power can he use to contend against the demon god emperor? Agaz finally understood what Vasago was trying to say. His expression finally changed drastically. Are you saying? As they conversed, the scene in the air changed drastically once more. The green sky that began to fall apart with the appearance of the Devil Dragon Emperor suddenly stabilized. Afterwards, the entire sky darkened slightly. Stars began to appear even higher up, illuminating the growing vegetation and evolving creatures. When it first began, the stars appeared one by one, but very soon, the number of stars increased drastically. As thousands and tens of thousands of stars shone, the demon god emperor's colossal body and the black hole he released actually became frozen in the sky. The third sword technique Od Eternity, the stars of eternity, had finally appeared. Nature's bloom, creation of the living, stars of eternity. The three sword techniques combined and sculpted a beautiful image in the air. It seemed like a whole new world was created at an altitude of 3,000 meters. Under the starlight, the plants grew and the creatures evolved. What wonderful, magnificent creation that abided by the principles of the world. This was also the most powerful technique that came with the divine throne of eternity and creation, Genesis. The demon god emperor was sealed within this magnificent image. He seemed incompatible with it. He seemed to have lost the ability to move completely, but his blood-red eyes were still vicious. It was also at this moment that the colossal black hole suddenly lit up. Dark, purple light suddenly expanded, adding a hint of dark purple to the scene of creation. The scene also suddenly began to distort, turning into a huge swirl that approached the demon god emperor. The power of creation had finally descended. In response, the Devil Dragon Emperor changed as well. His colossal body was still frozen, but the black hole suddenly shrank, shrinking before him. It turned into a tiny, dark purple ball of light on the Devil Dragon Emperor's head. The sky suddenly darkened. The moment when darkness descended seemed like all of the light had been purged, without a single ray remaining. Whether it was the powerful star demon god, moon demon god or the regular soldiers that fought from the dragon-resisting mountain pass, they all felt like something had grabbed them by the neck, making them suffocate. The darkness did not only appear in the sky. It seemed to appear in their hearts as well. An intense feeling of fear appeared with the darkness, as if the entire world would vanish if the darkness remained. Fortunately, light appeared once again in this darkness of annihilation. It only seemed to be a second, yet it also seemed to take eons. A speck of light appeared in the air. Afterwards, the speck of light seemed like it had opened a gate of light, allowing dazzling light to suddenly pour out. From extreme darkness to extreme brightness, even 8th and 9th step powerhouses cried out as they had been taken by surprise, closing their eyes in a hurry. The light had appeared above the sky. As the darkness and light clashed with tremendous intensity, no one managed to see what color it became. A huge ball of light illuminated the air. The ball of light was so large that it could be described as devastating. All of the mountains where the dragon-resisting mountain pass resided produced an ear-splitting squeaking sound, as if they could collapse at any time from the tremendous pressure of the ball of light in the air. Terrifying cracks also appeared over the mountains, indicating that it really was possible for them to collapse. Fortunately, after shining brilliantly, the ball of light began to shrink and everything returned back to normal. The sky had never been so clear, so empty before. Within a range of 5,000 kilometers, there was not a single cloud or a hint of foulness. The clear sky seemed strange due to its purity. Only two figures stood out in the sky. The Devil Dragon Emperor Fengxiu continued to hover in the sky with his colossal body, while near him was Long Haochen clad in the armor of eternity and creation with his wings unfolded, breathing heavily. Long Haochen's eyes seemed rather dim, while the white light from the armor of eternity and creation was much weaker now. However, his eyes were still filled with persistence. Besides the persistence, there was a sliver of reluctance to accept what had happened. This video will end here.